It is 6 a.m. on the dot. Welcome to your favorite breakfast show, Kusile breakfast show nalomhla ekseni. Sibongeke kusijoyina nalomuhla kunguLesihlanu. We have an exciting show for you nalomuhla ke njengenjwayelo nyalo nje sitawuqala sifunze dona tindzaba talapha ekhaya kanti ke uma sitephetha sitawuhlala phansi nalabaqhamuka ka-House on Fire labatabe bakhuluma nge-MTN Bushfire Festival, which is set to take place in the month of May. It is one of the most anticipated music festivals, not just in Eswatini, but in Africa as a whole, as loaded by BBC as Africa's top festival. In fact, Africa's top musical festival. It does a lot for the country in terms of stimulating the economy, as well as uplifting local artists, as well as just uplifting the social structure of Bantu Labakhona lapha eveni by giving back to the community through their 100 proceeds that they give back to charity. Siyathi-ke ukuthi bayabaniketa baka-Young Heroes, banikete nabomake labakhulile lawo ma-proceeds kuba uplifter. That's-ke uma sicetha ukukhulumisana naye Mandisa Maseko loqhamuka khona ka-House on Fire, sihlale phansi nalabaqhamuka ka-House Music Festival njengoba-ke it is set to take place this coming Saturday. In fact, esukwini lakusasa eManzini Club lapho khona a lot of local artists, in fact local disc jockeys, both DJ be-house music batawube batfola litfuba lekudlala against South African heavyweights lafaka ekhatsi bo Oscar Mbona bo DJ Zinhle ne heavyweight ke leyatiwako nga Oskido. This is a great opportunity again for Eswatini to stimulate its economy through domestic tourism njengoba abantu labatabe baqhamuka etigodzini letahlukene batawube baphelele kamanzini kanti ke phinze nebantu labaqhamuka eSouth Africa batabe bayile khona lapha ku-House Music Fest. So siyayibona ke nakhona i-foreign exchange yendeka, and again stimulating the country's economy. It is an exciting show. After that sitawubuka ke tindzaba leziqhamuka ngephandle kwalapha ekhaya njengenjwayelo kanti uma sitephetha sitawuhlala phansi naMusa Mantinto loqhamuka khona ka-Eswatini pageants. Musa will talk to us about pageantry in Eswatini that continues to grow in a rather commanding pace. Sesibonile ke ukuthi ihausa different pageants lafaka ekhatsi Miss Ecotourism, Miss Eswatini, Miss Cultural Heritage, nalamanye nje ema-pageants la khona. Musa utasitshela kabanti ukuthi i-modeling iyini kahle kahle nokuthi-ke labafuna ukujoyina lawo ma-pageants kufanele ukuthi bente kanjani ukuze babe eligible. Sitaba nabo-ke nalaba sikhulumisa ngetemidlalo-ke njengenjwayelo njengoba sathi ukuthi every Monday and every Fridays siba nema in-house journalists ethu etemidlalo la khulumisa tindzaba temidlalo. As we are going into the weekend, as we are heading into the weekend, there's always fascinating sports matches labakhona across the sports industry. Sitaba naye-ke Fabrice Msonera lotasi chazela kabanti ukuthi kule mpelasonto lesiya kuyo kutemidlalo sikatse ini. Sibahlole emakethe. The time is 3 minutes. In fact, it's about to be 4 minutes after 6. Masibuya sibuka tindzaba talapha ekhaya.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
6 minutes after 6, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Ake sibuka itindzaba talapha ekhaya. Indvuna yelitiko letemafa Neil Reichenbach itsi kulo mnyaka timali wa 2023-2024 lelitiko litawusebenta sikhwama lesitawubuka timali letitfolwa live kasakhu kanye neluhlelo lwekutsenga imphahla yahulumende ngetebuchwephesha lelatiwa nge-e-procurement system. Indvuna beyikhuluma ngesikhatsi vele ngaphambi kwelikomiti lelibuka kusebenta kwalelitiko layo endlini yetimphunga.
Indlu yetimphunga ngalesine ingene elangeni lesithathu emsebentini lochutshwa ngemakomiti lapho kusebenta kwamatiko kahulumende khona endlini yetimphunga lapho khona indvuna yetiko letemafa ne-Reichenbach yetfulele likomiti ukuthi lelitiko lisebente njani tinhlelo temnyaka timali wahulumende wa 2022-2023 yaphindze yacela kuphasiselwa emaphakelo emnyaka timali wahulumende wa 2023-2024. Ngemva kwalombiko timphunga tibe setibeka imibuto tatfumisa nemisebenti lebonakalako yalo litiko letemafa.
Cela injabulo yethu ingabe ngilekhatheka short ngalokuthi ukhanze ukuthi sekutawusuka lemisindo kuthi ngoba ikakhulu lemisindo isuswa kunama issues ema allowances kuthi engabe kudeni indlela nduna lehloniphekile through you chair kuthi kumane lama allowances are released in time ngoba kunalama pressures lama students laba nawo labenta ukuthi bese kubangeka lomsindo
naku indvuna icela imali esigabeni nje sekuvikela leli hovisi laka finance ku it's in mitigation strategy angathi noma ngiyo in mitigation strategy lapha ngibone ngathi sokuntshintsha nema systems la minister sekungenene nema systems lamasha ngetindleko letinsha so ngifuna nje kuva ukuthi sisayifaka le mali kudeni la ingathuka ivuta khona.
Indvuna yetemafa ibe seyiniketa letinye timphendvulo taleli komiti.
So we do presume that that the pain that we've been having around the scholarships and the payment of allowances should really be a thing of the past as of the beginning of this new financial year. We had actually the regulator has actually been working very hard with the Ministry of Finance on an e-procurement system. We were actually ready to launch the e-procurement system only to find that we then were actually also got ourselves ready for IFMIS. So IFMIS is now let's call it an audit system where the accountant general actually now has a much better software system on which everything is done.
Indvuna yetemafa itawetfula kuleli komiti umbiko wetimphendvulo letibhaliwe ngelilanga lelitawubekwa ngusihlalo waleli komiti imphunga Tony Sibanze. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza ngasikhumbuzo Dlamini eParliamente.
Ikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwelitiko letekwatisa endlini yetimphunga litsi-ke lelitiko lidzinga kusukumisa tindlela tekutfutfukisa tinhlelo tekwandzisa lwati lelingilo kufaka ekhatsi indlela yekuphila kwemaswati kute kunciphe kwanza kwemininingwane lengasiyo liciniso lehlisa nesitfundise live. Lelikomiti belikhuluma ngesikhatsi losabambe kuba indvuna yalelitiko Dr. Tambo Gina avele embi kwalelikomiti ngalesine.
Losabambe kuba indvuna yelitiko letekwatisa tekuchumana netebuchwephesha Dr. Tambo Gina sowuvele ngaphambi kwelikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwalelitiko endlini yetimphunga kwetfula umbiko kutsi lelitiko lisebente njani kumnyaka timali wahulumende lophelako lapho iphindze yacela khona kutsi lelikomiti liphasise emaphakelo alelitiko emnyaka timali wahulumende wa 2023-2024. Ngemva kwekutsi indvuna yetfule esandvulelo sayo timphunga tibe setiphosa imibuto kuyo indvuna.
Lingakhona yini ku-provide i-technology yokuthi ku-manage ama-local government elections phindze futhi ku-manage nema-elections elive lonke.
Ivele sinenge bekungene naNkulunkulu uyasho ukuthi siyabhubha sive bekwesola lwati but lesive semaswati kusiphatha kalukhuni siva buhlungu ukuthi sibhizi sinatha lo shevu longasuye lekutshelwa live ukuthi live kalukhulekanga bantwana bangena kulomsindo nje labanye ngeignorance ukuthi abati lutho siyafisa kwathi ukuthi litiko Nkosi yami lingenda tabatini ukuthi lemilayo nalolwati kubantwana bethu lesibadele bathi ukuthi lolo gijima embili ngemanga kepha liqiniso lithi
kunalapha eUniswa kuna stage labafunza ngayo security yawo ithini.
Indvuna ibe seyiniketa letinye timphendvulo.
Itiko linawo emandla kulombutho ukuthi ingabe indzaba yelukhetho kulethi gabeta hlukahlukene ngeke nisibambe singelitiko. iRSTP inawo onke lamandla kuphela nje ngilokuthi angisho lokuthi the proper resourcing abanikwa leti imali efanele lapha ka-RSTP kulesimo lesikhona eveni le ndambi itiko kuhlangabetana nalamanga nalo poison no chef lokhona ngidawucela lokuthi sivele sithe nempendulo le kahle lebhaliwe.
Ikomiti liphathisile endvuneni ukuthi lelitika seliyobuka tindlela tekunciphisa kwebiwa kwetintsambo telitfusi lesekubonakala kwanza eveni ngelizinga lelisetulu lokubuyisela live emuva. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza nginambongwa Dube eParliament.
Indvuna yetemabhizinisi Manqoba Khumalo seyinika inkampani lekhanga abahlanyeli timali kuleli yeSwatini Investment Promotion Authority insaya yokuthi kube nembukiso wemabhizinisi lamancane nalasemkhatsini etindzaweni letisemaphandleni kuteke nabosomabhizinisi labancane bakhona ukukhangisa ngemikhicito yabo. Khumalo bekakhuluma nakavula ngalokusemthethweni umhlangano sikolo wekufundzisa abosomabhizinisi labancane ngematfuba lakhona ebhizinisini lowatiwa ke ngevusa umnotfo expo lobo ubanjelwe eThameswater World eSithokothwo.
Induna yetemabhizinisi Manqoba Khumalo isukumisa ngalokusemthethweni umhlangano sikolo wemalanga namathathu lowatiwa ngevusa umnotfo expo lohlose ukuthuthukisa abosomabhizinisi abancane nabasemkhatsini ngekukhulumisana nekubalethela emathuba ebhizinisi etinhlangothini letahlukahlukene.
I'd like to challenge IPA and FirstBank at the trade fair to host a jobs and investment indaba for eMaswati. Just a day dedicated to that, and all the things that will come out of this week from here, and all the opportunities, all the frustrations, and all the opportunities, and all the ideas and suggestions must be packaged nicely during our international trade fair.
Daniel Habangan longunjiniyela ukhulume kabanti ngemathuba lakhona kutebuchwephesha kwathi Jakwe Maloma Colliery wakhuluma kabanti ngemathuba lakhona kutemayini.
Research shows that when women have access to ICTs, they have better access to education, to jobs, to healthcare, and to financial services. And understand this, when a woman has access to these things, it is not only for herself.
As Maloma Colliery continues to grow and push forward eco-friendly or sustainable mining, more jobs will be created for eMaswati.
Lo mhlangano sikolo akuchutshwa inkampani yaka-APA ngekusebentisana nenhlangano yabosomabhizinisi bemzabu iFirstBank kanika uphela ngalesihlanu kuleli viki etindzabeni ngengiyani Msibi nasimuva Shongwe eThameswater World eSithokothwo.
Indvuna yelitiko letemabhizinisi nekutsengiselana Manqoba Khumalo ithi uhulumende welakuleli naloyo waseNingizimu Afrika kumele ke bathathe tinyathelo leticatha ekuqinisekiseni ukuhlanyelwa kwetimali kwenteka ke kamelula kwebhizinisi kanye nekususa tonke tincabekelwano tekutsengiselana emkhatsini walamave lamabili. Indvuna ikusho lokhu ngesikhathi lehhovisi laloncisele live laseNingizimu Afrika kuleli lihlangene nebaphathi betinkampani takuleli yehotela lase-Royal Villas eZulwini.
Indvuna yelitiko letemabhizinisi kanye nekutsengiselana Manqoba Khumalo ithi ubudlelwane bekutsengiselana emkhathisini lakuleli kanye naleseNingizimu Afrika buhle njengaloku kuzuza lamavo mabili.
We have eMaswati who live in South Africa, and we have a lot of South Africans that live in Eswatini. This makes our two countries ideal partners to build on these links to foster our mutual prosperity. Actually, we have a lot of eMaswati living in South Africa that are South African, speak our language and share our culture. So it should make it a natural connection point between our two states.
lonxuso lelive laseningizimu Afrika kuleli advocate Thoko Sepalma uthi lamave lamabili akasebentisane ukuthi athuthukise iminotho yawo angasime tinhlanganweni tangephandle.
Between the two countries, we can run our own economies. There is nothing that stops us. We've got enough resources. We've got enough resources in the land that we need to actually actualize to make sure that our economies go higher.
Indvuna Khumalo ithi laseningizimu Afrika nelakuleli bayakhulumisana ukuthi ligede lakalavumisa sayelingavala ukuthi kuthengiselana kutawuba ngilokuhle. Ithi noma ligede lasengoya lingavala kodwa tisebenti taseningizimu Afrika letibuke kungena kwempahla kulamave lamabili tivala ngabo 5 Nzambama ngako lokho akulungiswe etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla inavuma inkosi inzinisa sisezulwini.
Indvuna yelitiko letekulima Jabulani Mabuza setfulela uhlelo lwemininingwane yabo bonke labaseluhla ngotsini lwetekulima kusukela kumlimi kuyofika kutekumaketha imikhicito yetekulima lelatiwa ngele Agriculture Integrated Information System. Lolu hlelo lwesekelwe ngetimali inhlangano yakamhlaba lebuketa indzaba tekudla i-World Food Programme.
Kuchubeka nekutfutfukisa tekulima lapha eveni kude tibambe emazinga emhlaba. Indvuna yelitiko letekulima Jabulani Mabuza setfule lihlelo lemininingwane leseyihlanganisiwe yabo bonke labaselihlangothini letekulima kufaka ekhatsi timakethe temkhicito yetekulima lelatiwa ngele Agriculture Integrated Information System. Lo hlelo lwakhiwe ngekusebenzisana nenkampani yahulumende lebukete science necubungula i-Royal Science and Technology Park kanye nenhlangano yakamhlaba lebuketa indzaba tekudla. Indvuna ibese ichaza ngebomcoka baloluhlelo.
Uma umuntu ati kuyinto lenkulu kakhulu sekunalo kungathi knowledge is power. Kubalulekile ke ukuthi wadi nase wadi emathuba ukuthi uinvest ngendlela lengiyo naleta uphindze isite kuyibooster i-economy yelive ayenyuka abesezingeni lelisetulu. Siyakukhuthata ke ngokuthi kwendeke isetshenziswe le system for the benefit of the country in terms of economic development.
Lobuke imicomvo lemisha ka-WFP Bheki Gininza uthi ngalolu hlelo live litawubona ukuthuthuka kwemikhicito leyahlukene yekudla.
Lokudla lokukhona la kaNgwane sicabanga ukuthi kutawanza futhi kutawuba lapho ukuthi ukulinyelwa tidzingo tinele letidzingo taKaNgwane longakhanzile live litikhanza liyotsekela kulamanye emave kuze litondle.
Lelitiko liphindze lemukele emathuluzi ekusebenta lolu hlelo labita imali letinkulungwane letingemakhulu lamathafu temalangeni lafaka ekhatsi bongcomvo mshina lanikelwe ngiyo inhlangano yaka-WFP. Etindzabeni ye-Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza kunasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Indvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha kanye netindzaba temvelo Moses Vilakati ithi isicubulo salonyaka sekugubha lusuku letangoma telitulu i-World Meteorological Day lesithi the future of weather, climate and water across generations sigcizelela sidingo lesikhulu lesikhulako ukuthi lwati ngesimo selitulu lusite ekuthatheni tincumo lakuleli ke libe mtsibu munye nemhlaba ekugubheni lolusuku.
Indvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha kanye netindzaba temvelo Moses Vilakati isimo selitulu asati buve kanye nemingcele tepolitiki.
Nasibuka letingoma tetulu sibuka lendzaba yeweather isho ukuthi sale sibukela nema future generations. Kungako ke sithe nebantwana ababekhona kusijabulisile nje kakhulu lokho ngathi vele ngabe besibite nje tonke etikolo kube naloya kuze kokuthi batokwati ukusibambisa ukuthi kodwa sisaya lembili sihamba kanjani. Hulumende wembube soluyasibambisa nyalo nje ukuthi utasengetela leminye yale letinye taleti popolo ngoba tifuna tibe lapha lapho ke saze sefika lapho ekuthenini swatise ngisho umlimi ukuthi uyathi ngalelanga lelivele litawuna.
Sangoma selitulu bongumenzi Themba uchaza ngesimo selitulu salelive eminyakeni letako.
Going forward we're expecting ukuthi ama degrees sisazachubeka shisa. However, when coming to rainfall singakacace clear isise 10 but lamanye ama models akhombisa sitawuncipha abanye akhombisa sitawukhula especially nje our internal analysis khombisa ukuthi around endzaba Big Bend Bonsoko iyangekhula kancane la rainfall but on the western escarpment iyangekuncipha and kubuya ku temperature sibone ukuthi on the western escarpment sibone nalokhona ukuthi the temperature yakhona nayo iyangeku the temperature yangekhulu, which makes it actually the Western Escarpment is becoming more warmer than the Middelveld and the Lowveld.
Lakuleli netiteshi tesimo selitulu leting-56 letisabalele nelive lonke kanti leting-45 kuleto temvula bese leting-11 tesimo selitulu. Etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngilavuma inkosi inzinisa namuzi Mkhonta sesezulwini.
Indvuna yetekulima Jabulani Mabuza ethi litiko litawubasekela abafuyi betingulube ngayo yonke indlela kude kukhule imkhicito wenyama yengulube kuleli. Indvuna beyikhuluma emhlanganweni lobanjelwe ehhotela leGeorge Kamanzini.
Bafuyi betingulube bahlangene nelitiko letekulima ukukhulumisana kabanti ukuthi bangabambisana njani ekukhuliseni nomkhicito wetingulube kuleli. Tinkinga letikhona tifaka ekhatsi kungatholi imakethe kubala kuletinye ke tinkinga. Bafuyi babe nemibuto nemibono ukuthi kungasebenziswana njani.
Kusekhona lamanye ama-products engulube laseta la kakhona. Bekungeke kwafakwa ngani ilevy yabo 30 to 35%.
Created a ban on importation since April 2019, and you've seen the growth through that.
Even those who already have the structures, now already in the industry, now bakhona ukusizakala.
Indvuna yetekulima Jabulani Mabuza ithi litiko liyadata itinkinga lebabhekene nato bafuyi yathi-ke litiko litimisele ekutheni kusebenziswane kubanjiswane.
Kule seminar ke sekutobukwa ke leto tingcinamba ukuthi kepha le tingcinamba lesidibana nato singabhekana nato njani ukuze sikhone ukuthi solve ema challenges lafaka ekhathi indzaba yedimakethe kulaba labakhicitako ubeve baze bese kubalukhuni ukuthi sithengisa kuphi sithengisela abani njani konke ke lokho batawukukhulumisa namuhla.
Umphathi waka Center for Financial Inclusion nomcebo Hadebe ukuthi nabo bayatimbandzakanye kusiteni bafuyi betingulube. Lokunye ke lokukhutsatiwe kusebenzisana kwabo bafuyi basathengisa inyama yengulube njengobe eminyakeni lesihlanu lengcile live bese lingasayithenga ngaphandle inyama yengulube ngoba bese likhicitela inyama leyanele. Etindzabeni ke kubika Giyani Msibi naSimuva Shongwe siseli George Kamanzini.
Libandla letelkhetfo nemincele lihlangene nebantfu abenkhosi nabo babetikhulu lababuke imimango esifundzeni saseshiselweni ngenhloso yekushiyelana lwati ngenzima labangayidlala kusalungiselelwa lukhetfo. Lo mhlangano ubanjelwe ehhotela laseSpayeni Lodge kuMatsapha.
Lo mhlangano uhlose kwakha budlelwano nabo babetikhulu njengoba libandla lelikhethwa nemincele lihamba imimango ngemimango lifundzisa ngaloke lukhethwa njengoba selusonzela. Sihlalo welibandla lelikhethwa nemincele umntwana Nkosi Mhlabuhlangene uthe boba betikhulu kumele bakuconza kusebenta kwaleli bandla letelukhetho.
Kunahulumende losukunyiswe kwakhiwa ngensandvo yeminyenti ngoba idemocracy nguhulumende akusibo bukhosi idemocracy. Bude bukhosi lobu idemocracy ngini bomba betikhulu bantu benkosi lefanele ukuthi sicine kuleti nkulumo leti.
Budlelwano emkhatsini waleli bandla naboshifu kutawusita ekutheni kufundzisa kwelibandla laka ABC kuchubeke kahle naboshifu babonakale badlala indzima yabo elukhethweni. Etindzabeni ngingiyani Msibi naSimuva Shongwe sisesibayeni Lodge kuMatsapha.
Libandla letelkhetfo nemincele yetinkhundla Elections and Boundaries Commission latisasive kule miphakathi phansi kwaletinkhundla letilandzelako ukuthi sibe ingcenye yemhlangano wekufundza ngelikhetfo nganankha emalanga. Ngalesihlanu ke 24 March 2023 tabe basetifundzeni kaHoho naselubonjeni. Inkhundla kaHoho kutabe kuyinkhundla senvonjeni kanti ke umphakathi kutawube kunguhelehele. Elibonjeni ke kutabe baseinkhundleni Sithobela imiphakathi ifaka ekhathi Nkonjwa, Mamisa, Hlanyeni kanye nasenokwane. Kanti ke ngemgcibelo mhla ka 25 March 2023 esifundzeni sakaHoho batabe basenkhundleni yemaphalaleni nasemayiweni. Kanti ke imiphakathi kutaba semaphalaleni nasemkhuzweni. Tase-ke balandzela esifundzeni saselubonjeni ngephansi kwenkhundla yaseGilgali imiphakathi Bulunga naseVigizi Jula. kanti-ke batabe sebalandzela ngesifundza sakamanzini enkhundleni yasekwaluseni imiphakathi kutawuba Galogoba, Mhlane naseMphanghomo. Kanti-ke batabe sebaya esifundzeni saseshiselweni tinkhundla kutawuba semthambeni kumthambama. Kanti-ke imiphakathi kutawuba Ebeneza nakumagele. Kutawuseke ngelisonto mhla ka-26 March 2023 esifundzeni sakaHhohho batabe basenkhundleni yemaphalaleni nasemayiweni. Imiphakathi kutawuba nguMadlolo naMfasini. Kanti-ke esifundzeni saseLibonjeni solo ngamhla ka-26 March 2023 batabe basenkhundleni yaseGilgal. Imiphakathi kutawuba nguMacetsheni Esigcaweni West. Kanti-ke enkhundleni yakalobamba lomdzala nasenhlambeni esifundzeni sakamanzini batabe basemiphakatsini lefaka ekhatsi eNgwenyameni, Ngonini naNjelu. Kanti-ke esifundzeni saseshiselweni batabe basenkhundleni Gege. Imiphakathi lefaka ekhatsi Nsukazi, Sidwala naSiyendle. Sikhatsi sekucala kwenhlangano kuto tonkhe letindzawo ngo-10 ekuseni. Kanti-ke bantfu labasha nalabakhubatekile bomake nabobabe bangasali kulo mhlangano. Simemetelo sikhoshwa ngusihlalo welibandla uMfanenkosi Mhlabuhlangene Dlamini. Kutemidlalo umphakathi wemsakato wemoya iVoice of the Church Reverend Zakaria Mtsetfwa uthi kutivocavoca kuhambisana nemsebenti wekukholwa njengoba kude kutsi uthandaze ngendlela lefanele kubita kutsi umtimba wakho uhlale ungulophilile. Mtsetfwa bekakhulumana kusukunyiswa ngalokusemtsetfweni iVOC Half Marathon yalonyaka letawubanjwa mhla ka-6 enyangeni yeNkhwekhweti kulomnyaka losetulo.
Umsakato wemoya iVoice of the Church ngekubambisana nelicembu lezithande lemidlalo wamatubane sebasukumisa umqutshelwano weVoice of the Church Half Marathon walonyaka. Umphathi weVOC Zakaria Mtsetfwa uchazile bomgcokwa bekukholwa uphinze utivocavoce.
We need to be telling Amaswati that the people who are supposed to be in the forefront in marathon and running are the church, because the Christians are carrying in their bodies the Holy Spirit. So the bodies must be strong to carry a strong God and a powerful God. So therefore, let's engage into this very powerful marathon. And the Bible says, by the way, in 1 Timothy 4, verse number 8, it says, from the NLT, it says, physical training is good.
Nsizwa thwala walicembu lezithando ubonga kakhulu umsakato nakubona sidingo lesibuyisela lomqutshelwano lowagcina kuba khona ngomnyaka wa-2019.
You are going to invest on your own health. This is an investment, it's not an expenditure. Your body and your future self will thank you for doing this.
Inhlangano engamele umdlalo wematubane lapha eveni ibonga lomsakato kanye nelicembu lezithande ngekudlala inzima lebonakalayo ekuthuthukiseni tematubane lapha eveni.
Ngibonga ukuthi babe tenkolo baphinze basikhuthaze nasegijimeni because kufanele sebasondla spiritually and physically. Si-encourage kuma-clubs nabo bonke ke bantu, the general public, ukuthi ba-participate kule race.
Lo mqhudelwano utawubanjwa mhla ka-6 ngenyanga yeNkhwekhweti eminyakeni losetulo kamanzini kusuka izakhele sports ground kanti utawuhlukaniswa ngetigaba letintsatfu lokuyi-5 km, 10 km kanye ne-21 km. Lubikile umsakato Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngilinda Dlamini kanti umbiko uhlanganiswe nguFabrice Msonera eMbabane.
29 minutes after 6 betingawo-ke tindzaba talapha ekhaya talomuhla sibahlole emakethe masibuya sikhulumisana nebaka House on Fire mayelana ne-MTN Bushfire Festival yalonyaka. 33 minutes after 6, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now named by BBC as the top African festival, Eswatini's internationally acclaimed music and arts festival, and Bushfire, hailed by BBC as a top African music festival. That's a big load. Yeah. Talk to me about how it has gotten to that position and how it stimulates the economy of Eswatini.
I think every year we work together as a team and we make sure to make it bigger. We know the goal. So we know exactly what to do. And about the economy, first and foremost, right now we're in the process of actually selecting our traders. Or some of the create like bracelets and all of that. So in that process, basically we're just trying to encourage every individual to stand up and just do something for yourself. Most importantly, also the hotels in the country, the lodges are already fully booked, and that's how we're basically we've basically boosted the economy in the country.
Let's talk more about the traders. I understand there's a wide range of traders, ranging from, just like you've said, people that sell bracelets, the arts and crafts really. What else do you offer there for the vendors?
For the vendors, we also open the Global Food Village where they can sell their food. And in the food space, we're just trying to make it as diverse as possible, not just to have one type of food. We also have Mozambican food, we have Asian cuisine, we have Nigerian food. It's just a whole mixture. And that's where we're also trying to be diverse, not only with, our selection of artists. We're just trying to make sure that each and every space is diverse. We also have the Kids Zone, which is a space for the kids. And we offer more than just, candy. I mean, we know kids like candy, but there's more than candy. There's games, there's face painting, and lots more. It's an entire experience, basically.
You spoke about hotels being fully booked. My question then is, obviously that feeds into, stimulating the tourism industry as well. And I would assume that it's not just domestic tourism. It's people from outside of the country. So now we're talking about foreign exchange, which is very big for Eswatini. How many people do you have go Bushfire? Ballpark estimate of the audience or the attendees.
It's thousands and thousands, and it changes every year. But every year it gets really bigger.
Is it over 20,000?
Definitely.
Yeah. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Let's talk about uplifting local artists, because I know that obviously you guys always have international and some artists from right next to us, South Africa, and other African artists, because you also have this theme of celebrating the African diaspora. But talk to me about how you guys uplift local artists.
Okay, so when we open our applications, our artist applications, we make sure to open it first to our local artists before we can open it up to international artists. And then even with we have a new project, a collaboration project, where we opened applications to firstly Eswatini, Eswatini artists, and also artists from Zimbabwe, Botswana, Lesotho, and Mozambique, which is those 5 countries for now.
Have you seen a situation where our local artists have gotten a chance to collaborate with these artists from outside of Swaziland after Bushfire?
Yes, we have. I don't know if you've seen the Zolani and Sands collaboration. Yes, so that was one of the collaborations that came out of Bushfire, and also the collaboration project is doing exactly that. We have Tobile Makoyan from Eswatini, who is collaborating with the Hood Bros from Mozambique. So we're going to give you guys a chance to watch them and see their journey as we're leading up to the MTN Bushfire.
Yeah, we've spoken about the lineup just briefly, but I would appreciate if, I don't know if the full lineup has been revealed. Has it been?
No, it hasn't.
Yeah, so some big names are still yet to be revealed.
Yeah, we're still yet to drop some names for you guys.
You wouldn't do us a favor of announcing maybe one?
No.
Are you going to miss this opportunity? It's a big opportunity. Imagine how many people.
No.
Okay, that's fine. But tell me some of the artists that have been revealed already.
So we have Black Motion from South Africa, Shoma Josie from South Africa, we have Ibei from France, and then from Eswatini we have Velemseni, we have Tibo Intellectual. We also have the Cirque, who specialize in circus performance, so that's going to be another big thing.
Yeah.
And Daliso Chaponda from Malawi, who is a comedian, also a Waterford alumni. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots more.
Yeah, can you just please reiterate on the local acts? I heard you said
Velemseni, Tibo Intellectual, and more.
And more. Yet to be announced.
Yet to be announced.
Be on the lookout for that for sure. Another interesting part about the MTN Bushfire Festival is that 100% of your proceeds, I believe, goes to a charity. For me personally, when I heard that, it was hard for me to believe that 100%. 100%.
Not 100%.
Okay,
Not
I needed that
100%.
clarification.
No, definitely
Talk to me
not
about
100%.
that development in terms of giving back to the community.
Okay, so we have 2 festival beneficiaries, Young Heroes and Bomage Gonduro Project.
Okay.
So with Young Heroes, a percentage of every ticket bought at Bushfire goes to them. And then with Bomage Gondura, we basically get some women from the Lubambulamzalo community who are basically interested in the arts and culture, or that, you know, make some sort of beadwork, and they can use they can sell those items, and the money that they get doesn't come to us. The money that they get goes to them for, you know, their own, you know, personal sustainability.
Right.
And yeah, that's what we do.
Okay. Talk to me about when this event is really this year, and what else really you guys will be offering. This is my parting question.
The event is taking place on the 26th of May to the 28th of May. It's a 3-day festival. We're expecting, guys, just bring your fire. Please bring your fire. You guys are not ready. We have like an exciting lineup, and there's more to be revealed. I know a lot of people are just saying, guys, is that it?
When are you revealing the next artist?
Next week.
Yeah.
Next week.
Next week?
Next week, yes.
Okay. So there's a bit of excitement around, who is it? Is it Stogie T? Stogie T is coming?
Yes. The hip-hop guys, yeah. If you're a hip-hop fan, that's definitely one to watch.
Yeah.
Definitely one to watch.
Well, Mandisa, I think we've come to the end of our brief interview. I don't know if there's more you'd want to add.
Okay, today we have an MTN Bushfire activation opposite the bus rank, La Mbabane, and we'll basically be telling people more about the MTN Bushfire Festival and also promoting some MTN products. And we're giving away some tickets, so if you want a ticket, just make sure
How are we
you're
not
there.
giving away a few tickets on the show? I mean, we can arrange with the producers.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
I'll be back. I'll be back for that.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
That's a promise.
Thank you so much.
Mandisa Masego, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mandisa Masego, the communications from House on Fire, representing MTN Bushfire Festival. We just talked about this year's edition, what to look out for in this year's edition, the lineup, as well as what you should be excited about as it is on its way, nearly a month away now. So all Eswatini should be excited for that. But most importantly, how it stimulates the country's economy through tourism, as well as uplifting local artists, as well as giving back to, you know, their social responsibility. Let's take a quick ad break. It is 42 minutes after 6. When we come back, Sikulumani Baga House Music Fest, which is set to take place this Saturday.
why should we pay our TV license?
The content on our local television is actually more up to date. The industry is enhanced.
It is a criminal offense not to pay your TV license and attracts a fine of 500 emalangeni or 6 months imprisonment.
And the industry is definitely blooming, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we have for you. But we'll be right back just after the break, and we'll give you more of Miss V.
Pay my TV license. That's why I can enjoy the benefits of an enhanced industry and keep track with recent transformation.
Mommy, who pays for a TV license and what are they paying for?
The owners of TV set and a gadget with a tuner like DVD set have to pay.
Pay your TV license at NetBank with the details provided on screen. Or use your cell phone via the mobile money pay. You could also visit your nearest post office and pay there. Pay your TV license via Eswatini Mobile Imali. Any TV device retailer can purchase a license to trade. Pay your TV license and enhance the industry.
It is just gone 45 minutes after 6. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now we talk about the House Music Festival, which is the highly acclaimed House Music Festival set to take place this coming weekend on the 25th of March. This event has been the most talked about and anticipated music festival so far this year for Eswatini. I'm joined now in studio by Nogwanda Sibanza, who is there. Communications officer at House Music at Swazi Boy.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, Swazi Boy. Let's talk about House Music Festival, Nogwanda. Kusasa sengilo lolusuku. Moswati lamanengi ajabule kakhulu about these days. Talk to me about, firstly, I like to start with this question. How it takes the opportunity of stimulating the country's economy.
House Music Fest, as we have known, it's been one of the more fast-growing entertainment event in the past couple of years, because we've been running for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And every year it's getting bigger. And Nana Natsikas Mangalisa, because 2020, which was the last one, the people that came through, it was overwhelming, really.
Yeah.
And so we have realized that this event also now is part of the events where you can count as one of the events that actually stimulate and helps grow the economy of the country.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see. We're excited to continue to have more people come to the event to help stimulate the economy.
Yeah, and I could make a case that it's the fastest growing event, and it's quite compelling if we notice that it is focusing on just one specific genre of music. I didn't know that we had that big of a market in Eswatini, but I would also assume that it's not just about the music alone now. You guys have also spread, your wings and what you offer. Talk to me about what else is offered during the day besides just listening to house music.
Well, it is one of the fastest growing events in the country, and it's exciting. We are seeing the opportunity that we have as House Music Festival, so we're growing. This year we are allowing your kids to come through, so we'll have a kids area. We also have wine and whiskey tasting. We also, one of the things that we're excited about is the pet drive that we're doing this year.
Yeah.
So we're asking and we're pleading with our house music fans and music fans in general to come through with a pack of pets or two or even more to help young girls around the country.
And one thing I've noticed about Swazi Boy events is how they make an unrelenting and an unwavering commitment to always push local brands. And I would suppose even with the wine tastings and the whiskey tastings, it's going to be a lot of local brands there. Would you promise me that?
Of course, I do promise you that.
Yeah.
That's what we are proud of as Swazi Boy and as House Music Fest, because local is very important. Supporting local artists, supporting local businesses, it's very important. Hence why all our stalls, food stalls, are local stalls.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's talk about the local disc jockeys, they call them DJs, that you have on this year's lineup. Obviously, you do. We're also going to talk about the, you know, the ones from South Africa, the big names. But I want us to start by talking about the local ones. Who do you have?
We have the only female local artist that we have this year, DJ Expo. She is also one of the artists that is growing. We have the Bishops. We have New Life Ensemble. We have a lot. We have Crooks, who is the OG of the industry. So we are proud to be supporting local artists. And every year we try to have more local artists on our lineup. And we're happy to do so,
Yeah, no wonder. Interestingly enough, I have a couple of friends from South Africa who are driving to Eswatini today for this event, and it also speaks to, you know, stimulating the country's economy. But worth noting is that they're not sleeping in my house. They're not sleeping in my house. They have booked in hotels. Do you see this as a growing development within this event in terms of, you know, attracting people from outside of Eswatini to come attend this music festival?
Of course, of course. We have received calls, people asking where they can book, where is the area of the festival taking place, and it's exciting to just be part of such growth, and it's exciting to see people from outside the country supporting local brands such as House Music Fest, and more international people are calling in and wanting to find out where they can sleep, where they can book, and we are very excited to host them.
Yeah, talk to me about the international acts, or rather, let me say the South African acts, because a lot of them are South African.
Yes, they are. Yeah, most of them. We only have South African ones, and
it's house music.
It's house music. We have DJ Oskido, who is, I mean, needs no introduction. We have Orthodox. Orthodox is local. But he also does South African. And we have DJ Zinhle, who people can say she's not really a house music fan, but we try to accommodate everyone that comes to house music, because we realized over the past years that it's not just house music fans that are coming to the event now. So everyone is coming, so we try to accommodate people. So we have Oskambo, who
that's the biggest one.
Is the biggest. People are excited to see that. So excited.
Looking forward to that, Nwanda. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we hope your event is going to be a big success.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nwanda Sibanze, Communications Officer from Swaziboy Entertainment, talking to us about the House Music Festival, which is taking place tomorrow at Manzini Club. A lot of Maswati excited for this event, and we hope it's going to be a success, as it is another event that continues to help the country in terms of stimulating its economy by attracting people from outside of the country, and we benefit through foreign exchange. Let's take a quick ad break. Sibuya sibuka a traffic update.
Lesi isikhathi lapho khona emaphoyisa agubha kuba khona kwawo even. Kulapho kukhuthathwa khona sive ukuthi sike sihlale phansi sibuke bumcoka bemaphoyisa empilweni yabantu. Siphindze sibuke indlela letinsha tekuphepha kubo bonke bucala lobuveta sihloko. Sive sakangwane siyakhunjutwa ukuthi singawafaki emaphoyisa etinkulumeni tepolitiki ngoba liphoyisa alingeni futhi alingenelani nepolitiki. Emaphoyisa alwa nebucala netingoti temgwaco kuphela nje. Ingako emaphoyisa athi wonke umuntu eveni akahlale ngaphandle kwekunceneka ukuthi angahle ahlaselwe tilwane tasendle. Umuntu lohlala eSwatini akatiphilele atisebentele ngaphandle kwekwesaba kuhlaselwa kwemucwa nekucekelwa phansi kwempahla yakhe. Nawe wena lophathekile, emaphoyisa athi digulele kahle uze uphile ngaphandle kwekuphathamiseka. Lokungenteka ngekuthi tidlova tingene tihlasele labo labakunakekelako kuleyo ndlu. Sive lesihlakaniphile nguleso lesiphakamisa kusebenta kwemaphoyisa nabo bonke labalwa nebucala. Ngale kwaloko timbungushe tiyawuwangenela emazinyane kungenamuntu ekhaya. Lo mlayeto niulethelwa ngemaphoyisa embube abambisene nomsakato wetithombe.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. We take a look now at our international news. French workers angry with a rise in the pension age blocked access to a terminal at Paris. Rosie Charles de Gaulle. Communication from my producer says we should take a look at our traffic update 53 minutes after 6. Sorry for that miscommunication. We have Sergeant Bekmuzi Kule on the line who is going to update us on the traffic update. Sikuwamukele magwabane nalomhla ekuseni ngabe simi kanjani simo emigwaqweni.
Siyabonga kakhulu Mnguni, sikusele nakuye umbukeli wehlelo. Sibuka namuhla libonakala lisibekele indzaweni letiphakeme yebo kulotini indzawo iyawusibonakala nayo imfumo. Khumbula mshayeli ukuthi bachuba imoto yakho usebenzisa wona umgwaqo uyena isiqiniseko ukuthi ushayela ngesimo lesikhona embi kwakho ngaleso sikhathi. Ekhathi edolobheni laseMbabane tibane tethu disebenza kahle kanti ke na uphuma uyowehla lapha kuMalagwane lapha eMountain Inn noma ke Mangwaneni solo asisebenzi letho sibane letho kanti etulo entsabeni yakuMalagwane na uqhamuka ingwenya wehlela khona emvutshini qala yona intsaba lapho siyaxwayisa ukuthi asiqaphele kune cooling station lapho imoto leti inkulu timisiwe wena siqiniseko sokuthi ke siyahlolwa nokukhunjutwa ngekwehla naye intsaba lenkulu kanti ke nawenyuka futhi maqonzana nje noma nje directly opposite nayo leyo cooling station kuneloli lefile lapho ithetheke yona i-driving lane kungumzila wakhamba umzila lo ngasenqele phela siyakhuthaza nje nakhona bekunene ukuthi sisenda taba ukuthi awuyikhweshe leyo motolo asichubeke ke siyendlule ngendlela leyo bangileyo lefanele lapha endasi kumathapha kamanzini kanjalo nalapha enhlangano sisebenza kahle tibane tethu noko lesingakuphawula imigwaqo leminingi eveni solo iyalungisa kudinga ke ukuthi ke usashayela imotolo yakho wende isiqiniseko sekuthi ke ushayela ngalokukhulu ukucophelela ikakhulukazi kunaka lapho kwakhiwa khona noma ke kusetshenzwa khona wende isiqiniseko sokuthi leto disebenzi noma ke labo labasebenza emgwaqweni bayawusebenza ngendlela leyoba uleyo lephephile. Ivuliwe ke imigwaqo leminingi lapha edolobheni lakamanzini lebe solo sivalelwe yona silungiselwa yona siyakhuthaza nje kakhulu bekunene ukuthi asichubeke sinake kubude litiyela kepha ke kuyahambeka nakube ke kuyigravel sisijabe kunene asihlise litubane kwatise ukuthi uphakama donati imvuli lapha bese ke kuba khudlwanyana noma kuphunyanyana ubona indlela ikakhulukazi njengoba nalabo labahamba ngetinyawo bayaphithitela emigwaqweni nalapha elibonjeni siyayibona imfuyo solo ikhona emigwaqweni siyakhuthaza nje kakhulu bekunene ukuthi nakhona abanikazi bemfuyo abayikhweshise emigwaqweni sisi nje bekunene ngolesihlanu namhla sicala yona impela sonto kuningi lokwendekako kepha ke konke la ukhona khona asibeke embilithi zabathe kuphepha wende isiqiniseko sokuthi uyamnaka nalomunye ukhumbule kuphepha kwakho kuphepha kwami nasi kanye sibambisene sitawukhona ukunciphisa donatingoti nabo buqala. Siyabonga kakhulu Mngoni.
Siba kakhulu magobane isikhathi sakho siyanifisela ke losuku loluhlenana nisasebenza nisachuba umsebenzi welive lomuhla. It is 56 minutes after 6. Let's take a quick ad break. Uma sibuya sibuka indzaba leqhamuka ngaphandle kwalapha eveni.
Using an ATM is a simple process. You simply insert your card, punch in your PIN, and withdraw your cash. However, this simple process can open up you and your finances to some dangers. So it is very important that you proceed with caution when using the ATM and never share your PIN. When approaching the ATM, it is very important that you have your card ready, either in your hand or in your pocket, so that you do not waste time going through your belongings, either your wallet or your handbag, as this will give opportunities for thieves to act. Thirdly, put your money away immediately. Don't give anyone an opportunity to grab your cash or your card after a withdrawal. Lastly, Always take your receipt after each and every transaction. It is important that you get your sleep after every transaction because it contains crucial information about your balances, and that may lead you to be a victim of bolandela. Be cyber aware, be cyber smart.
Welcome back. It is 59 minutes after 6. Let's take a look at our international news. We start in France, where Emmanuel Macron has boiling water over his head. French workers angry with a rise in the pension age blocked access to a terminal at Paris Roissy Charles de Gaulle Airport on Thursday as part of a nationwide day of protests, forcing some travelers to get there on foot. Train services were disrupted and some schools shut, while garbage piled up on the streets and electricity output was cut as unions raised pressure on the government to withdraw the law which delays retirement by 2 years to 64.
Passengers left cars and taxis to cross the highway on foot here at Charles de Gaulle Airport to reach their flight terminal as protesters blocked access.
We've hardly a choice. Macron is standing by his law that he adopted by force. It was a denial of democracy. We don't have any choice but to strike and block the economy until he surrenders and withdraws his reform.
Meanwhile, workers blocked the train tracks here at Paris's Gare de Lyon in the first day of mass strike action since President Macron forced his controversial retirement reform through Parliament, and the 9th strike day in just 2 months. In the early morning, a blockade at this bus station outside Paris stopped buses from departing on their routes.
He's not a king. He has to listen to his people, and the people say no. Despite the government's indiscriminate force, it's still no. It doesn't matter if the law is passed, voted or implemented, it's no.
A day earlier, Macron said he was prepared to accept unpopularity for the sake of a bill he described as being in the national interest. Violence has intensified in recent days at scattered protests, and security forces are bracing for more, deploying some 12,000 police around the country. Blockades are continuing at ports, refineries and rubbish dumps as rubbish continues to pile up in the streets, while half of high-speed trains are cancelled. A recent survey showed Macron's approval rating at 28%, its lowest since the height of the Yellow Vest protest movement some 5 years ago.
Now for developing news, still on the pension reform in France. Protests in France may impact the logistics for a planned state visit by Britain's King Charles next week, a Buckingham Palace has said on Wednesday.
They're expected on Sunday evening in France. But King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla's first state visit coincides with a turbulent time for the country, with Paris rocked by protests and swamped with uncollected rubbish. The trash is also piling up in front of the British Embassy, where the royal couple will stay. They may well have a room with a view. A walk down the Champs-Élysées, art galleries, a state dinner at the Palace of Versailles, and a trip to Bordeaux and its vineyards. That was the provisional programme, but given the social turmoil, all of it is now up in the air.
It's possible, given some of the statements by trade union leaders, that the trip planned to Bordeaux might perhaps be altered.
Charles and Camilla were due to travel from Paris to Bordeaux by train before taking the tram into the city centre, but that plan is likely to be disrupted.
For his visit, we plan to block and protest on the tracks of the line that he's supposed to take. The more we are, the better.
Some politicians are even calling for the royal visit to be cancelled, judging it inappropriate at the moment.
It's unbelievable. So we're going to see Emmanuel Macron, the monarch of the Republic, walking down the Champs-Élysées with King Charles III, having dinner together at Versailles while people are in the streets protesting. Do they have any idea what's going on?
In these circumstances, the trip will also be a security challenge, and any mishaps would be embarrassing for France.
A group of TikTok content creators descended on the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday to protest against calls for a ban on the popular Chinese-owned video-sharing app, now amid fears that it presents a national security threat.
It now boasts more than 150 million American users, but TikTok's future in the US hangs in the balance. A growing number of lawmakers want to ban the popular Chinese-owned app. These influencers and business owners descended on Congress to show they aren't happy about it.
TikTok's been instrumental in accelerating my advocacy, and I know that I'm not alone.
It has actually allowed me to increase my income by 700%, and this extra income has allowed me to support myself, build a studio, and pay staff. And then this platform is taken away, then I'm not sure if I'll be able to continue to do that.
Hi, everyone.
TikTok's CEO, Shouzi Chu, is due to testify in Congress on Thursday.
To share all that we're doing to protect Americans.
President Joe Biden's administration has demanded TikTok's Chinese owners sell or face a potential ban. The app is already outlawed on all federal government devices, but many officials don't think that goes far enough. They fear TikTok could pass Americans' personal data to Beijing, censor content and influence users, allegations the company denies. The platform's supporters argue it's no more prone to data breaches than other apps that collect personal information.
There is a real problem, and we should be addressing it. And it includes TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and other platforms about our data and our privacy of our data and selling our data and allowing misinformation. But that is not what's being addressed when people say they want to ban TikTok.
TikTok's been in the crosshairs of the US government for years. Courts blocked a prior bid by the Trump administration to ban it, in part on the grounds that it would violate free speech. That means any move to block it likely depends on passage of the Restrict Act, a new bill that would bolster the government's authority to ban foreign technology.
And the chief executive officer of TikTok, Shouzi Chu, pushed back on Thursday against the calls from U.S. lawmakers to the social media app, contending that the company is not connected to the Chinese Communist Party.
The head of the massively popular video sharing app TikTok on defense Thursday as bipartisan calls to ban the app or severely restrict its use gain momentum.
TikTok collects nearly every data point imaginable, from people's location to what they type and copy, who they talk to, biometric data, and more. Even if they've never been on TikTok, your trackers are embedded in sites across the web. TikTok surveils us all. And the Chinese Communist Party is able to use this as a tool to manipulate America as a whole.
CEO Shouzi Chu said the app is a place for free expression, and his company is working to safeguard data stored in locations in the U.S. and Singapore.
I have seen no evidence that the Chinese government has access to that data. They have never asked us. We have not provided.
Lawmakers concerned that TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
The combination of TikTok's Beijing communist-based China ownership and its popularity exacerbates its danger to our country and to our privacy.
Global security experts contend the app could be a national security disaster.
TikTok is programmed to be weaponized. And if China can weaponize a balloon, think of what it can do with 150 million TikTok users at its mercy in the U.S. alone.
But Chu sought to refute those claims.
ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government. It's a private company. 60% of the company is owned by global institutional investors. 20% is owned by the founder, and 20% owned by employees around the world.
China says the U.S. has yet to provide any evidence the app threatens national security.
The U.S. should stop spreading disinformation.
And not all U.S. lawmakers agree with calls for a ban.
TikTok as a platform has created a community and a space for free speech for 150 million Americans and counting.
TikTok will soon be banned from all U.S. government devices. The White House saying this week it's carefully considering a nationwide ban.
We understand the popularity of TikTok. That is something, we get that. But the president's job is to make sure, again, that the Americans' national security is protected as well.
New bipartisan legislation would not outright ban the app, instead giving Biden increased ability to regulate and sanction social media companies.
We have a free market economy. We have a Constitution, a Bill of Rights, and the rule of law. And so when we go about a process like this, it has to be orderly.
A TikTok ban could be deeply unpopular with many younger Americans, a factor lawmakers may consider ahead of the 2024 elections. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
The Republican House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCaul is demanding that U.S. Secretary of the State Antony Blinken provide documents on the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. McCaul said the catastrophic exit from Afghanistan emboldened Russian President Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine.
The abrupt withdrawal of all U.S. forces from Afghanistan in August 2021 and the chaotic scenes at the Kabul airport of Afghans trying to flee the country are back in the spotlight. With Republicans holding a majority in the House of Representatives, House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCaul is investigating what he calls the debacle of the U.S. withdrawal. McCaul says the Biden administration projected weakness to U.S. adversaries, emboldening both Russia's and China's leaders.
We saw not too long after the fall of Afghanistan on satellite imagery, the Russian Federation moving towards Ukraine. It was never a question of if, it was a question of when with Mr. Putin. And I think from what he saw, he decided it was the time. And we saw the troop presence, and then we saw the invasion. And then we see Chairman Xi. Chairman Xi is threatening Taiwan as we speak.
Several Democratic members pointed out that the Trump administration had already set a date for all U.S. forces to leave Afghanistan before President Joe Biden came into office and brought an end to America's longest war. Many lawmakers view the suicide bombing that killed 13 U.S. service members at the Kabul International Airport during the evacuations as a security failure. McCaul has asked Blinken to provide documents, including a descent channel cable reportedly sent in July 2021 by diplomats serving at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, warning that the Afghan government was at risk of collapse in the face of a rapid advance by the Taliban. The descent channel is a formal communication procedure that allows State Department employees to bring urgent dissenting opinions on foreign policy issues to the Secretary of State's attention without fear of retribution. Blinken said the State Department is working with the committee and just turned over thousands of pages on the plan to evacuate the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. But he said he would not hand over the descent cable.
It is vital to me that we preserve the integrity of that process and of that channel, that we not take any steps that could have a chilling effect on the willingness of others to come forward in the future to express dissenting views on the policies that are being pursued.
McCaul said he would give Blinken until Monday to turn over the descent cable, or else he would issue a subpoena, saying Americans deserve answers about the fall of the Afghan government, the U.S. departure, and the Taliban takeover of the country. Cindy Sain, VOA News, the State Department.
Tuberculosis, a bacterial infection of the lungs, is one of the world's deadliest diseases. After decades of progress, cases are on the rise once more. March 24 was World TB Day, and as we report, there are hopes that a vaccine may be developed in the next few years to help eradicate the disease.
Tuberculosis killed 1.6 million people last year. Progress against tackling the disease was set back significantly by the coronavirus pandemic.
Because of the lockdown, because of the fact that actually the response to COVID was constructed a lot on the work, on the equipment, on the hospitals and dispensaries, on the staff that worked for TB. A lot of them were completely shifted to deal with COVID.
Doctors say that has led to rising numbers of people with untreated and undiagnosed TB. India has the highest disease burden globally, with more than 500,000 TB deaths in 2021, about a third of the global total. But there is hope that the disease can be overcome this decade. India diagnosed and treated 2.4 million people with TB in 2022. Indonesia, Bangladesh, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia and Brazil also made progress. World TB Day on March 24th marks the anniversary of German doctor Robert Koch's discovery in 1882 of the bacterium that causes the disease. This year, the theme is Yes, We Can End TB. India has set a target to effectively eradicate tuberculosis by 2025. The World Health Organization has set a global target of 2030 through diagnosis, treatment, and the development of a vaccine.
When you put together the fact that we have a bit more political commitment, or more, I would say, that we have a lot of new tools that we didn't have before, that we have the perspectives of a vaccine to come in the next 2-3 years. And we have an amazing civil society and community platform and networks. It's actually giving us a lot of hope that we can end TB.
But that will require more funding, an estimated $230 billion over the next 8 years.
We are pretty convinced that the world will try to end TB and will try to be as bold as it was during COVID. Because for the COVID vaccine, $100 billion were found more or less like that.
Tuberculosis is more prevalent and deadly in poorer countries. Scientists say a lack of commercial opportunity has hindered research and development into new TB medicines. But the development of a new vaccine would save millions of lives. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says governments must do much more to move away from fossil fuels. The Biden administration has taken several steps to do so, but a recent decision to approve an oil drilling project in Alaska has disappointed those who want the U.S. to swiftly cut greenhouse gas emissions.
After a failed attempt during the Trump administration, crude oil producer ConocoPhillips now has a green light from the Biden administration to build and operate a scaled-back version of its Willow oil drilling project in Alaska. Environmentalists are fighting back.
We're suing the federal government because it has a responsibility under our National Environmental Policy Act to analyze alternatives to mitigate environmental harm. ConocoPhillips will still be able to develop 92% of the oil that they contemplated in their original proposal.
Air quality, water quality, how the project would impact animals. A number of people in the community have real concerns about climate change.
But Alaskan peoples on the North Slope are not a monolith. Nagarek Harcharek, president of the Voice of the Arctic in Nupiat, lobbied in favor of the Willow project.
There's going to be 2,500 construction jobs on the site itself. The research into our subsistence resources, so the whales and the terrestrial animals that we have, and all of that is funded through the taxes generated from the resource development.
ConocoPhillips and several U.S. agencies declined to be interviewed. But White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre defended the administration's decision.
Some of the company's leases are decades old, granted by prior administrations. The company has a legal right to those leases.
After the Department of the Interior green-lighted the Willow project, President Joe Biden announced new actions to conserve and restore federal lands and water habitats across the nation. While he did not keep his promise to reject new drilling on public lands, Biden's environmental record is strong, said Tiernan Sittenfeld with the League of Conservation Voters.
The Inflation Reduction Act is the single biggest investment our country has ever made. It's $369 billion in climate solutions, in clean energy, in environmental justice.
The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change urged again this week that nations phase out fossil fuels. A quick shift by the US is unlikely, according to political scientist Stefan Schmidt.
It's not so easy to be environmental when you have, so few options of substituting the existing energy means of transportation and production of electricity, which relies on hydrocarbons largely.
Congressional pushback adds to the challenges. House Republicans are expected to vote on a bill next week that would, among other things, end a federal moratorium on the leasing of federal land for coal mining. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
Flintlock, the United States-led annual joint military exercises in West Africa, is introducing maritime training for troops in the Gulf of Guinea. In this report, reporter Henry Wilkins explores whether oil piracy is prompting the new training as he joins forces practicing a hostage rescue at sea.
Troops from Ghana, Nigeria and Ivory Coast prepare to board a ship carrying actors playing the role of hostages. It's the first time in almost 20 years that the US-run counter-terrorism exercises, known as Flintlock, have included maritime training for West African troops. Some Flintlock participants questioned why a big focus of this year's exercise was on the southern parts of West Africa's coastal states. The terror threat to those countries is coming from the north, from militants linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State in the Sahel and Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria. US military organizers said the request for maritime training came from their African partners.
Ghana is strided by rivers which run from the north to the south. Mainly that is the Volta, Pra and Ankobra. These maritime channels are avenues for violent extremist organizations or terrorist groups to conduct their activities, connect to supply routes in the south, and also could be avenues of escape and infiltration.
West Africa's Gulf of Guinea has made headlines in recent years as it appeared to replace waters off the Horn of Africa as the continent's piracy hotspot. However, since 2021, piracy has all but disappeared in the Gulf. The International Maritime Organization has delisted it as an area of concern. Analysts say the illicit activity having the most impact now is the theft of oil at sea.
But it's not attacking of ships in terms of stealing their cargo or kidnapping their crew. What we saw a spike of at the end of last year was the theft of oil. Oil theft is probably the single biggest worry for Nigeria at the moment.
Nigeria is not alone. Ghana is also hoping to combat illicit activities at sea.
Because Ghana is drilling oil, so we have to ensure that we have eyes on it, making sure those areas are very protected or secured, because once it gets into the hands of unlawful people, it's go to the detriment of the whole country.
Experts say petrol theft is a growing problem, even though statistics are lacking on its frequency. An investigation by the Nigerian Senate last year found that between January and August of 2022, the country lost more than $2 billion in income to oil theft on land or at sea. Vines warns the decline in piracy may be short-lived.
The bad news is I do think this is cyclical. And so a combination with very high oil prices exacerbated further by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And so I suspect that the pirates have actually become oil thieves for the time being. and may return to some of their pirate-like activities if the oil price really reduces.
Experts say that protecting economies and therefore the stability and prosperity of West African countries plays a part in combating terrorist group recruitment. Maritime training on the south coast might therefore negatively impact Al-Qaeda, Islamic State and Boko Haram. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Sogakope, Ghana.
According to Argentina's migration data, some 11,000 Russian women have arrived in the country since the start of 2022. Now, many of them were pregnant and gave birth to children in the South of American country.
From 2020 to 2022, according to Argentinian immigration data, more than 22,000 Russian citizens entered Argentina, nearly half of them women. Many of them were in the late stages of pregnancy and gave birth to children here. Kirill Makoveyev is founder of the RU Argentina agency, which was created to help Russian immigrants in Argentina. He says business is good.
Some 70,000 people consulted our website in the last year regarding giving birth in Argentina.
Argentinian law grants any child born in the country automatic citizenship. The baby's parents get permanent residency status and can later apply for an Argentinian passport. An Argentinian passport allows Russians to travel freely to 170 countries. Getting out of Russia has become more costly and in some cases impossible due to travel restrictions some countries have put in place. It also allows them to avoid being drafted to fight in Ukraine. Natalia Xenofontova moved to Argentina from the city of Ufa, Russia, while pregnant with her third child.
I have two sons. I realized that the future I had planned for them, going to study in Europe, everything being great, it all got ruined in one day. When I found out I was pregnant with my third child, we had a long think about what to do and made the decision to leave Russia.
But Argentinian authorities say that many Russian women given birth here aren't staying in Argentina. In the past year, over half of the Russians who came to Argentina, about 13,000, have since left, many of them women who gave birth in the country. In February, Florencia Carignano, the director of Argentina's immigration office, announced its decision to suspend issuing permanent residency for Russian citizens who give birth in Argentina but spend most of their time in other countries.
In January 2023, 4,523 Russian citizens entered Argentina. And these numbers are growing dramatically. We can see the growing number of incoming flights, the growing number of pregnant Russian women.
Alla and Andrei Prigolovkin stayed. They initially came to Argentina to avoid the possibility her husband might be drafted to fight in Ukraine.
I told him that I worry that he can get into mobilization, and I'm afraid that he can die on this war and I will grow our baby alone.
Natalia Xenofontova also has no plans to leave Argentina. For now, she and her husband are working remotely, learning Spanish and looking for jobs in Buenos Aires. They say this is their new home and along with it, new hope for a bright future for their children. Karina Befredjian for VOA News, Washington.
26 minutes after 7, asibahlolet makethe singakayithi makethe sida ukuthatha simo selitulo.
The acceleration of already high food, fertilizer and fuel prices has triggered a global crisis that could drive millions more into extreme poverty, magnifying hunger and malnutrition, whilst threatening to raise the global humanitarian caseload to new highs and erase hard-won development gains.
Food pricing is our #1 problem right now as a result of all this perfect storm for 2022. But 2023, it very well will be a food availability problem.
What's the one thing that we all have in common? It's food. We need it, we enjoy it, and it brings us together. But right now, accessing affordable and nutritious food is becoming more and more difficult around the world. We've found ourselves living in a global food crisis.
Millions upon millions of people, in fact, 345 million people today are suffering from hunger at a crisis level.
Since early 2022, we at WFP already warned that this would be a year of unprecedented hunger. The pandemic's economic consequences play a huge part in hunger rising to unprecedented levels. At the same time, climate shocks continue to destroy lives, crops, and livelihoods, and undermine people's ability to feed themselves. Meanwhile, conflict keeps waging war on everyday life. As the biggest driver of hunger, currently 60% of the world's hungry live in areas afflicted by violence. In Ukraine, the war has transformed what was the breadbasket of the world into a major humanitarian aid recipient. Before the war began, Ukraine produced enough food to feed 400 million people per year. But when the war started, Ukraine's food exports all but stopped, trapping corn and wheat inside the country.
You know what is really interesting is that our markets for exporting food are highly concentrated. What that means is that less than 10 countries export 80-90% of total exports of crops like wheat, corn, rice, soybean. So when any shock happens to one of these 10 countries or less, we see a disproportionate effect around the world.
It's likely you're already feeling the impact of the crisis, whether that's seeing higher food prices during your weekly shop or finding limited supplies in the supermarket.
Before the war in Ukraine started, prices of food commodities were already at a 10-year high. Prices of fuel commodities were already at a 7-year high. And now on top of that, because of the war, things were not moving as they were supposed to out of the Black Sea. And this is troublesome, not only for the poor countries, but also for rich countries. Look at the United States, 8.5% inflation hasn't happened in decades. Look at UK, 10.1%. So if our advanced economies are suffering as they are, what to talk of poor net food and fuel importing countries?
When it comes to the world's most vulnerable, the cost of the global food crisis will be counted in lives lost.
Almost every country in the Middle East and North Africa region have been hard hit by the war in Ukraine. This is a region that's highly dependent on food imports, and especially on the imports of grain from Ukraine and from Russia. 30% and more of the grain that comes to this region comes from Ukraine and Russia because of the geographical proximity. There are many countries in the region who have had a big burden in terms of food prices because of the conflict in Ukraine. To give you an example, a country like Syria, food prices have increased by 37% from February till April, and that's since the onset of the conflict.
Even before the global food crisis, some families were already living on the edge.
ما كانت حتصرفني هيك أبدا. كنت أعمل مكبوس، كنت أعمل زيتون، كانت الأسعار معقولة يعني. الوضع أسوأ لأنه الأسعار كل ما عم ترتفع. يعني ربطة الخبز اللي هي ربطة خبز الشيء الأساسي بالبيت سعرها تغير. هلا كثير شغلات نحن حارمين حالنا منها، مثلا الفواكه ممنوعة، تفتحي بالرادي فاضي مصفر. هلا ليجي الصغير من المدرسة نتغدى وراحت للمساء ليجي بيو من الشغل لحتى نتعشى. وجبتين بنها.
The global food crisis we're facing is being worsened by the energy crisis and the fertilizer crisis that are also occurring, leaving millions of people at risk of hunger and unable to afford a basic meal.
What we don't want for sure is that today's affordability crisis turns into or becomes tomorrow's availability crisis. What I mean by that is that today, if you have money, you can buy food. But if you don't sort out a few things right now, tomorrow, even if you have money, it won't be enough to buy food. What are those things to sort out? We need to make sure that the next agricultural season is a good one. That requires agricultural inputs, especially fertilizer. And if that doesn't happen, our affordability crisis, which is bad enough as we can see around the world, turns into an availability crisis, meaning that food will be even less affordable for millions upon millions of people around the world. I like to say that when WFP is setting records, that doesn't sound great for the world. In 2020, we assisted about 116 million people. In 2021, we assisted about 128 million people. That's the highest in our 60-year history. And guess what? This year, we're planning to assist between 140 to 150 million people. But in order for that to happen, WFP needs funding because we are voluntarily funded. And two, we always need access. And when we have both of them, we can do the job.
Right now, WFP's response focuses on three key things: providing emergency food and cash assistance and nutrition support to prevent millions from dying of hunger, supporting national social protection systems, and strengthening food systems. It's clear we all need to work together and fast in the face of today's global food crisis.
We are talking about salt in our diet today. What happens when we consume too much salt, and how can we reduce it in our diet? And why should we do that? Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. We are talking to Dr. Francesco Branca today. Welcome, Francesco. Francesco, WHO's latest report is urging everyone to reduce salt in our diet. Please explain to us what happens when we consume too much salt.
Consuming too much salt is leading to increased blood pressure and to increased risk of death for heart disease and stroke. Too much salt is the most important dietary risk factor for the global burden of disease. We have 1 adult in 4 that has a high blood pressure, and we have 2 million people dying every year as a result of consuming too much salt.
Francesco, how do we know if we are consuming too much salt?
Most of us are consuming too much salt. The WHO recommends to consume not more than 5 grams of salt every day, which is roughly half of what on average people consume in the world. You can get salt from what you add to foods at home, or you can get salt from the manufactured products. In many high-income countries, the largest amount of salt comes from manufactured food. About 80% comes from manufactured food, such as bread, cheeses, preserved meat, but also high salt snacks and food consumed out of home. Normally the same preparation that we consume at home is less salt than the one that is produced in a restaurant, for example. Just to give you an example, if you take an average bag of chips of 150 grams, that only that bag of chips contains half of the salt we're supposed to consume every day. In lower income countries, sodium or salt comes mainly from what is added during the home preparation and during the preparation of preserves. It comes from condiments or other sauces that are added to the food.
Francesco, let's talk about how we can reduce our salt intake.
You can progressively reduce salt in our diet and adjust your taste. It will take a few weeks, but eventually you will be able to reduce your salt intake. Remember that we need to do that by 1/3 to 1/2 of our current intake. Some of it is under our control, and we can add less salt during cooking. We can replace it with other seasoning, lemon, juice, spices. We can also decide to buy less of the food that contains a high amount of salt, the processed food. We can buy less frequently certain options. We can also buy alternatives. The same products sometimes is designed to contain less salt. And if you look at the labels, it's actually explicitly mentioned that it could be a low salt product. We can also altogether replace certain options with healthier ones. So if you reduce the consumption of salty snacks, you can instead consume fruit and or vegetable as a snack. And fruit and vegetable not only contains less salt, but they contain another important mineral, potassium, which is protective for our arteries and actually protects us from increased blood pressure. But then it's not just our responsibility, but it's what we see in the food environment we live. And governments can nudge companies to put on the market products with less salt, but they can also offer meals in public institutions such as schools that contain less salt. So there could be really an overall collaboration between individual consumers and public health authorities to help us reduce the risk of high blood pressure by reducing salt intake.
Thank you, Francesco. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science. We are going to talk today about the investigation on the origins of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the virus that causes COVID-19. Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. We are talking to Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove today. Welcome, Maria. Give us an update on this investigation. Where are we now?
Understanding how this pandemic began remains absolutely critical, not only for the current situation that we are in, but also to be better prepared and to prevent future epidemics and pandemics. What we know about the current pandemic is that there are several hypotheses that are under investigation. Some of these involve a zoonotic spillover in which the virus was circulating perhaps in bats, maybe passed through an intermediate host at a market or on a farm, and entered the human population from exposure to those animals. There are several different pathways and studies that need to be conducted to further understand this. There are also studies that need to be conducted to understand if there was a breach in biosafety or biosecurity at any labs that were working with similar viruses to SARS-CoV-2. At the present time, we don't have the data to be able to conclude how this pandemic began.
Maria, talk to us about why it's important to look at the origins of a virus and what is it that the scientists are looking for?
When we're looking at the start of any epidemic and pandemic, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to look at the earliest cases and understand what their potential exposures were. How did they first get infected? Scientists are looking at a number of different types of studies in humans. How much had this virus been circulating when we had the first reports of cases in Wuhan, China? We look at seroepidemiologic studies to determine whether or not we missed infections that happened perhaps earlier. We also look at the types of exposures at the animal-human interface. The earliest cases were associated with the Huanan market in Wuhan, China, and so there are some clues there in terms of potential exposures to animals that were sold at that market, or the environment in the market may have been exposed from contamination, for example. We need to look at genetics studies if there are any sequences that are available from the earliest cases. And we also need to look at some of the data systems that were in place in China, like influenza-like illness surveillance or SARI surveillance. And perhaps we missed some of the earliest cases because we didn't know what COVID was at the time. So there are many studies in humans, there are studies in animals, there are studies at the animal-human interface. In addition to that, we also need to look at the laboratories that were working with coronaviruses around the time of the first detected cases to determine if there was any breach in biosafety or biosecurity at any of those labs. So certain assessments or audits need to be carried out to determine one way or another. At the present time, there are many hypotheses that need to be pursued by scientists, by the international community, and we're not able to exclude any of those hypotheses until we have the data to do so. And unfortunately, at the present time, many of the studies have not yet been carried out, or we don't have the results from those. So as WHO and as the international community is actively debating this, we're not able to make a firm conclusion at the present time.
Maria, talk to us about the role that WHO plays in this investigation.
WHO plays a critical role in understanding the origins of any outbreaks, epidemics, or pandemics. We bring the world's expertise together, the best minds and the best disciplines around the world to come together to address a very complicated and difficult question in terms of how these outbreaks began. Since the very early days, there were questions that we had to our colleagues in China about the earliest exposures related to the markets and also looking back at potential animal exposures and other types of exposures that may have kicked off this outbreak. Since the early days, there have been missions that have taken place in Wuhan, and we've had international missions that have been established to help us better understand and advance the data that needs to be collected to understand how this pandemic began. WHO has also established a scientific advisory group for the study of the origins of novel pathogens, or SAGO, to evaluate the current pandemic and how that began, and to advise WHO on critical studies that need to be carried out, as well as to design a global framework to outline how studies need to be done for the next time that this happens. The SAGO has recommended very detailed studies on what needs to be done to understand the origins of COVID-19. That report is online. As WHO and with our technical partners around the world, we continue to look at all available evidence that is provided to us that we have access to. We continue to work with scientists from around the world to advance studies that have been recommended. We continue to request from China better collaboration. This work will continue until we can rule out any of the hypotheses and until we have an answer. It is becoming increasingly difficult to understand how this pandemic began as we enter the fourth year of this pandemic. But as an organization, as public health professionals, as scientists, we must pursue this until all avenues are exhausted. And we must also pursue this for the millions of people who have lost their lives, for the tens of thousands of people who continue to lose their lives every single month, for the people who have lost their livelihoods, for the people who are suffering from post-COVID-19 condition. We owe it to them to exhaust every angle to understand how this pandemic began so that we can be better prepared for the future.
Thank you, Maria. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Using an ATM is a simple process. You insert your card, punch in your PIN, and withdraw your money. However, this simple task can open you and your finances up to certain dangers if you are not careful. Always exercise caution whenever you are transacting at an ATM machine. Always use an ATM during daylight hours. Robberies are far more likely to happen during the night when fewer people surround that ATM location. However, if you have to use an ATM during the night, you need to choose a machine in a well-lit public area. Avoid using ATM located in isolated or obscured areas. Robberies are far more likely to happen in remote areas where the ATM is covered by shadows or other structures. You should avoid such environment since lesser people can witness any criminal activity taking place. Make sure that all the lights on the ATM are working. If ever you find an ATM with faulty lights or other visibly broken features, you need to avoid using that machine. Be cyber aware, be cyber smart. Transact with caution.
It is 10 minutes before 8 lomuhla ekuseni. We want to apologize ngokuthi-ke asigcine singabi nabo baka-pageants Eswatini, and it looks like we are not going to have our sports journalist labata sipha-ke i-recap, kusipha nje ama-highlights ukuthi what to look out for this weekend ndzabeni tetemidlalo. They are having challenges emigwaqweni, kodwa-ke we are going to do a quick recap of today's show. Sitawucala nje nge-MTN Bushfire Festival lebheke ukuthi ibe khona ngenyanga yaMeyi kulo mnyaka-ke lo setulu. It is an exciting event which, by the way, worth noting, in 2019 announced that it has generated over 500 million emalangeni in the broader scheme of things in terms of revenue that is pumped into the creative industry of live la Kangwane. Ke siyakubona lokho njengoba ke sikhulumile naye Mandisa Maseko longuye ke umchumanisi wayo i-House on Fire lapha Kangwane, witsinzile indzaba ukuthi batimisele njengekuchubeka ba-stimulate yona economy ye-live through tourism. I-domestic tourism siyayibona nanayo ukuthi iba yindzaba lenkulu njengoba ku-MTN Bushfire over thousands and thousands of emaswati laqhamuka eGodzini tonke telive dotini ata lapha eMalkens ahlanganyele nebantfu labanye labaqhamuka in over 50 countries, by the way, lakhona lapha e-Africa. Nalaman Bushfire Festival lebekhona yekugcina tinombolo tiphinze tabati loku ascertaina kona kusho ukuthi lokwashiwa i-BBC in terms of this festival being Africa's top music festival is indeed true in terms of attracting people from over 50 countries. Yathemba ukuthi live la Kangwane nalo nyaka litawuzuza kuna festival naye. Kanti-ke sitawukhumbula nalo ukuthi elangeni lakusasa kule mphela sonto we do have a house music festival which is hosted by Swaziboy Entertainment Stable. Siyathi-ke lokho ukuthi this is one of the most talked about and most anticipated music festivals kulo mnyaka walonyaka. Sibonile ke ukuthi emnyakeni lophelile DJs like Sux, which is a guy wakamasuko lapha Kangwane, who is blazing the trails outside of Eswatini and making a name for Eswatini, is doing very well in terms of putting the country on the map. Emnyakeni lophelile they had what is called a guy called Moda from Black Motion, who did very well in terms of representing South Africa and excited the crowd as seen on the TV screen right now. That was the crowd from last year's festival. Siyathemba ke ukuthi nalonyaka a lot of emaswati will reflect le excitement lebonakalako on social media in terms of shared posts, in terms of post abantu labakhombisa inkhaphu yeku attend i-house music festival yalonyaka. Fan lovers are definitely going to be spoiled kuna weekend nayi. Siwabonile ke ma-artists la announcwe ngiyo i-house music festival la faka ekhatsi Orthodox walapha Kangwane, Fantasy naye walapha Kangwane, the Bishops, which is an ensemble yalapha Kangwane, DJ Njebe, DJ Zinhle from South Africa. There's Oskido, who is a South African heavyweight, in fact an African heavyweight in the house music sector. There's Chronicle Deep from Stay True Sounds, who is one of the most most anticipated DJs for this upcoming weekend, as well as the OG DJ Christos. DJ Expo is going to be the only female DJ kule festival yalonyaka. Kanti-ke ne-vocalist yaka-Stay True Sounds CEO, who has a good song with DJ Dawson. Nanaye is one of the most anticipated artists. Kanti-ke na DJ Crooks Walapangwane Utaube akhona. Kanti-ke worth noting ukuthi Oscar Mbo, who is arguably the #1 house music DJ right now in South Africa, deep house music DJ in South Africa, is going to be there, and a lot of people are going to be there because of him. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi we did have Nogwanda Sibanze, who is the communications officer at House Music Fest. Losichazele kabanti ukuthi House Music Fest kulo 4 years since established has been growing in leaps and bounds. Njengoba ke sesibona ukuthi for the first time this year sayithatha tinyathelo ethatha ama-events lamakhulu lafaka ekhathi bo-Bushfire Boluchi Festival in terms of attracting even people from outside of Eswatini. Uvetile nje ukuthi a lot of people have been calling in kuva ukuthi where can they book in terms of hotels and lodges labatau khona kuphumula khona basethu enjoy yona House Music Fest. It is an exciting year for Eswatini, entertainment industry, arts and creative industry, and it is worth noting ukuthi all these industries or all these events play a significant and major role in terms of boosting the country's economy as well as uplifting our local artists. Bakhone kudiphilisa. It is 56 minutes after 7. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi nihlale nathi eluhlelweni, sinisale kahle sitanibona evikini lelitako.
The authority requires the services of a correspondent journalist to be based at Kusile region to provide ESTVA with news content from each areas on any matters as may be assigned from time to time. The minimum requirements are projected on your screen. You can send your applications to recruitment